Hey guys, so in the last video, I said that number 6 of the Transmog top 10, the best dungeons to farm for Transmog in WoW, would be the shocker that some of y'all wouldn't necessarily believe things. So, without further ado, let me present to you the dungeon that was 2 times as good as Scarlet Monastery, 3 times as good as Uldaman, better than any other vanilla transmog farming dungeon in the game. Drak'tharon Keep? I'm sorry. I ran it 50 times. The numbers kept being good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Okay. I also said in the last video that there were 3 rules of Transmog, and one of them was that Wrath of the Lich King gear doesn't sell for anything, and it never sells. Well, here's the thing. When you have a rule like that, supply and demand does a funny thing. People stop farming it. So there's no competition. So people who are farming it have a monopoly. They can charge whatever they want, and over the past 5-10 years, the price just goes up and up and up. So now it's expensive and better than every other vanilla transmog farm.
Also, side note, I gave y'all a couple months heads up on this in my Nerubian Chitin Anka head skinning video, and I tend to put my biggest tips and tricks and secrets in the videos that I don't expect to get a huge number of views. I don't want to tank any markets, but I want to let y'all know. So if you're a serious gold maker, maybe don't skip over the videos like that.
So, onto the basics of how to farm this one. It's located, there are 2 entrances to the dungeon. One is in Grizzly Hills, and then one is on the other side of the mountain range in Zuldrak. You run through a little tunnel, and the entrance is right there. Right off the bat, we've got a couple tricks. There are 2 trolls that come running at you. The one on the right takes 15 seconds to spawn as an enemy, but the first one, he spawns right away. I just, as I'm running away, taunt him. And here, you want to save a speed boost for these 2 guys so you can taunt the one on the left. Both of these 2 enemies will de-aggro when they get far enough away, so you want to catch up to both of them. And then there are 2 more enemies that enter from each side. The 2 on the left will get pulled from all the train of enemies you have following you. And then I hook them all into the side and kill them there rather than pull them all the way through the dungeon, because the big guys do despawn on you, or they evade. And they also pull this boss, which turns out you don't have to fight. Boss takes like 5 minutes to farm, or to kill. Don't kill him. Just run past him. It's fine. I pre-group the bats so they can all get into one nice little pile. And then once we're outside, you can mount up. You can notice I'm in travel form. That's great. That saves you a little bit of time, lets you move a little faster. The reason why I ran all the way around rather than just jump over that little wall is because you can't. There's an invisible barrier there you can't cross. But if you have herbalism and you care about base Wrath of the Lich King herbs, there are herbs all over this place. So there's a little extra gold per lap, but it's not worth it. Once you get to the top of the stairs, you can no longer be mounted, so that's why I'm in cat form again. But the rest of this dungeon is just super linear, and it's really easy. As you can see, I'm getting a stupid amount of gold from the gear here. It's fantastic. And then you'll notice that I just, as soon as I kill those 3 guys, I dream walk. I'm done with the dungeon. All that's left is to run up, kill the last boss, and then there's a 60-second run back, down a couple waterfalls, back to the start. And it's just as fast to just dream walk, and then dream walk again a minute later, and you're back at the start of the dungeon. Just make sure to reset the dungeon while you're in the Dream Grove, or Zen meditation works. Yes, I'm aware that there are other tricks that you can use to exit and re-enter a dungeon, but none of those are intended, so I don't recommend them. Alright, but blah blah blah, how to run the dungeon. Y'all don't care about that. Y'all want the numbers, y'all want the math. Let's go. So, the mean run, the average run, was 27,000 gold. The median run, that's ignoring like the really good drops, was 16,000 gold. So these numbers are actually really similar to what we saw out of Moradon. And Moradon was a 9-minute lap. This is a 3-minute lap. So, like, right there, that tells you, like, why this is so good. But let's dive in a little deeper because I'm a nerd. This dungeon has 77 enemies and takes us 4 minutes when you include dream walking. That gives us a density of 19 enemies that you're killing per minute. Mordon had just under 30 enemies that we're killing per minute, so it's about 2/3 of the density. But that also means that our gold per enemy here is 210 gold per enemy, whereas in Mordon, it was 110. So we have 2/3 of the density, but 2 times the value of the loot. So it's just better. And you get a feel for this when you're farming it. Like, the average armor item you pick up has a region market price of like 2k to 8k, which, if you've been farming along with some of the other dungeons, is like high, but it's not stupidly high. It's still reasonable. And then for the armor, the weapons, excuse me, they are between like 8k and 30k, which is again high, but like, that's kind of the way it goes in Transmog. Like 2 to 4k for an armor item, 10k plus for a weapon. Like, that's kind of the average out there for the good transmogs. The only difference here is that all of the armor prices sell for that little bit more. And we talked about the supply and demand side. Like, people who are farming Wrath right now have a monopoly. So after this video comes out, prices are probably going to fall a little bit. But also, Wrath was the first time that there was a major art update on the armor. Like, in Wrath, you could start to tell if a piece of gear was steel or iron or silver, whereas in vanilla, like, it was gray or gray or gray. So for today's Q&A, we've got a nice quick comment from Nick Brink, who says, value 30k, sale average 200 gold, whatever. I don't know the name of that emoticon, whatever. But he brings up a good point. If you're looking at the Trade Skill Master tooltips, you can see that, like, the region market price is 5,000 gold for an item. The price on your server is 2,000 gold, but the sale average is 200 gold. What gives? So this kind of gets into statistics and econ and all of that stuff. You know, if I say the median of this dungeon is 16k, but the mean is 29k, if a armor item says it's worth 3k and 5k and 500 gold, which of those is correct? Well, all of them are correct. They're all calculated using different means, and you use them for different purposes. So DB market is the price of the item on your server for the past 2 weeks. If it says historical rather than market price, then that's over the past 2 months. Region historical is all the servers on the US or EU, the average of all those prices over either 2 weeks or 2 months. As a guide maker, I like to give the most general answer I can and then just let you guys adjust that mentally. Like, if you're on a high pop server, you know the prices are going to be less. But then what about sale average? Well, sale average is based on Trade Skill Master data, what the average sale price is. And it is also accurate. It's what it has sold for. But with Transmog, we're trying to identify what it's worth to you, what it would sell for you. And in econ, there's 2 things that have to be met. The buyer has to be willing to pay that price, and the buyer has to be able to pay that price. So as the price goes up and up, they become less able and less willing to pay that price. So there's kind of a maximum price that they'd be willing and able to pay, but they'd also buy it anywhere less than that. Like, you can buy a car for $20,000, but, you know, if someone offered you that car for $350, like, you'd buy it then too. So I like to work with examples. Let's say you have a piece of transmog that you put up on the auction house and it sells for 10,000 gold. Cool. You have another one that you're posting up, but then someone goes out rep farming and gets 5 more of them and puts them up on the auction house for 1 gold each. Are you going to undercut them? No, that's like dumb. You know it's worth 10,000 gold. So you just like buy those items and vendor them and whatever. You're now the cheapest again. at 10,000 gold, ready for your next buyer to come along and give you the sale. But because you bought those items for 1 gold because some noob posted it up without knowing that they were actually worth 10k, the average sale price has dropped down to, God, I have to do math again, 1,500 gold, 2,000 gold, somewhere around there. The sale average is saying it's worth way, way less. That price data isn't what people are willing and able to spend on it. But sale average is really good for fast-moving consumables, or herbs, potions, flasks, things like that. More current content reagents. But this does have a problem associated with it, and I'm going to let y'all talk about this down in the comments, all you math-inclined people. I'm about to get really nerdy, so feel free to let your eyes glaze over if you hate math. So, what we care about when it comes to regions sold per day is how often, not how often does it sell, but how often does it sell at the price that we want. Well, if we divide the region historical price by the sale average, that would give us a variable of how many times out of every sale it sells at the price we want. And then we could take that number and divide the regions sold per day by that number to get like a true sale rate. But that makes me nervous because that variable is going to be really high on some of these items. But is that because the transmog never sells at what it's actually worth? Is it because there's just no competition, so there's no one buying these items in order to flip them? Like, we don't know the reason, and until we know the reason, the math doesn't necessarily work out that way, and maybe the equation doesn't actually apply. Let me know what you guys think. This is one of the only real problems I have with the sell rate of transmog. Everything else is just gravy, and we'll talk about sell rates more when I conclude the transmog top 10. But until then, stay tuned for number 5. I'm really excited about number 5 because we're going to get really nerdy about efficiency in that one. So I'll talk to you then. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, guys. Good luck and happy gold making.